12. Put your library on wheels. One of the greatest opportunities for motivating yourself today lies in the way you use your drive time. There is no longer any excuse for time in the car to be downtime, or frustrating, or time that isn't motivating. With the huge variety of audio tapes and CDs now available, you can use your time on the road to educate and motivate yourself at the same time. When we use our time in the car to simply listen to hip-hop or to curse traffic, we are undermining our own frame of mind. Moreover, by listening to tabloid-type news programs for too long a period of time, we actu get a distorted view of life. News programs today have one goal: to shock or sadden the listener. The most vulgar and horrific stories around the state and nation are searched for and found. I experienced this firsthand when I worked for a daily newspaper. I saw how panicked the city desk got if there were no murders or rapes that day. I watched as they tore through the wire stories to see if a news item from another state could be gruesome enough to save the front page. If there's no drowning, they'll reluctantly go with a near drowning. There is nothing wrong with this. It's not immoral or unethical. It feeds the public's hunger for bad news. It's exactly what people want. So, in a way, it is a service. But it reaches its most damaging proportions when the average listener to a car radio believes that all this bad news is a true and fair reflection of what's happening in the world. It's not. It is deliberately selected to spice up the broadcast and keep people listening. It is designed to horrify, because horrified people are a riveted audience, and advertisers like it that way. The media have also found ways to extend the stories that are truly horrible, so that we don't hear them just once. If a plane goes down, we can listen all week long as investigators pick through the wreckage, and family members weep before the microphones. A week later, playing the last words of the pilots found in the black box on the air extends the story further. In the meantime, while we are glued to our news stations, air safety is better than ever before. Literally, millions of planes are taking off and landing without incident. Deaths per passenger mile are decreasing every year as the technology for safe flight improves. But is that news? No. And because my seminar schedule requires that I travel a lot by air, I can see up close what the so-called news has done to our psyches. Simple turbulence in the air will cause my fellow passengers' eyes to enlarge, and their hands to grip their armrests in terror. The negative programming of our minds has had a huge impact on us. If we would be more selective with how we program our minds while we are driving, we could have some exciting breakthroughs in two important areas: knowledge and motivation. There are now hundreds of audiobook series on self-motivation, on how to use the internet, on health, on goal setting, and on all the useful subjects that we need to think about if we're going to grow. As Emerson once said, we become what we think about all day long. I first heard that sentence years ago while driving in my car listening to an Earl Nightingale audio program. If we leave what we think about to chance, or to a tabloid radio station, then we lose a large measure of control over our own minds. Many people today drive a great deal of the time. With motivational and educational audiobooks, it has been estimated that drivers can receive the equivalent of a full semester in college. With 3 months worth of driving, most libraries have large sections devoted to audiobooks. And all the best, and all the current audiobooks are now available on internet booksellers' sites. Are all motivational programs effective? No, some might not move you at all. That's why it's good to read the customer reviews before buying an audio program over the internet. But there have been so many times when a great motivational audio played in my car has had a positive impact on my frame of mind and my ability to live and work with enthusiasm. One moment stands out in my memory above all others, although there have been hundreds. I was driving in my car one day listening to Wayne Dyer's classic audio series, Choosing Your Own Greatness. At the end of a long, moving argument for not making our happiness dependent on some material object hanging out there in our future, Dyer said, "There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way." That one thought eased itself into my mind at that moment and never left it. It is not an original thought, but Dyer's gentle presentation, so filled with serene joy, and so effortlessly spoken, changed me in a way that no ancient volume of wisdom ever could have. That's one of the powers of the audiobook form of learning. It's simultaneous and extremely intimate one-on-one experience. Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Caroline Miss, Barbara Scher, Tom Peters, Nathaniel Brandon, Earl Nightingale, Alan Watts, and Anthony Robbins are just a few motivators whose tapes have changed my life. You'll find your own favorites. You don't have to find time to go read at the library. Forget the library. You are already driving in one. 13. Definitely plan your work. Some of us may think we're too depressed right now to start on a new course of personal motivation, or we're too angry, or we're too upset about certain problems. But Napoleon Hill insisted that that's the perfect time to learn one of life's most unusual rules. There is one unbeatable rule for the mastery of sorrows and disappointments, and that is the transmutation of those emotional frustrations through definitely planned work. It is a rule which has no equal. Once we get the picture of who we want to be, definitely planned work is the next step on the path. Definitely planned work inspires the energy of purpose. Without it, we suffer from a weird kind of intention deficit disorder. We're short on intention. We don't know where we're going or what we're up to. When I was a training instructor at a time management company many years ago, we taught people in business how to maximize time spent on the job. The primary idea was this: 1 hour of planning saves 3 hours of execution. However, most of us don't feel we have time for that hour of planning. We're too busy cleaning up yesterday's problems that were caused by lack of planning. We don't yet see that planning would be the most productive hour we spend. Instead, we wander unconsciously into the workplace and react to crises. Again, most of which result from a failure to plan. A carefully planned meeting can take a third of the time that an unplanned free-for-all takes. A carefully planned day can take a third of the time that an unplanned free-for-all day takes. My friend Kirk Nelson manages a large sales staff at a major radio station. His success in life was motor-8 until he discovered the principle of definitely planned work. Now, he spends 2 hours each weekend on his computer planning the week ahead. It's made all the difference in the world, he said. Not only do I get 3 times the work done, but I feel so in control. The week feels like my week. The work feels like my work. My life feels like my life. It is impossible to work with a definite sense of purpose and be depressed at the same time. Carefully planned work will motivate you to do more and worry less. 14. Bounce your thoughts. If you've ever coached or worked with kids who play basketball, you know that most of them have a tendency to dribble with only one hand, the one attached to their dominant arm. When you notice a child doing this, you might call him aside and say, "Billy, you're dribbling with just the one hand every time, and the defender can easily defend you when you do that. Your options are cut off. You need to dribble with your other hand too, so that he never knows which way you're going to go." At this point, Billy might say, "Can't." And you smile and say, "What do you mean you can't?" And Billy then shows you that when he dribbles with his subdominant weaker hand and arm, the ball is all over the place. So, to his mind, he can't. "Billy," you say, "it's not that you can't. It's just that you haven't." Then you explain to Billy that his other hand can dribble just as well if he is willing to practice. It's just a matter of logging enough bounces. It's the simple formation of a habit. After enough practice dribbling with his other hand, Billy will learn you were right. The same principle is true for reprogramming our own dominant habits of thinking. If our dominant thought habit is pessimistic, all we have to do is dribble with the other hand. Think optimistic thoughts more and more often until it feels natural. If someone had asked me before I started my journey to self-motivation that began with Napoleon Hill why I didn't try to be more goal-oriented and optimistic, I would have said, "I can't. It's just not me." I wouldn't know how, but it would have been more accurate for me to just say, "I haven't." Thinking is just like bouncing the basketball. On the one hand, I can think pessimistically and build that side of me up. It's just a matter of repeatedly bouncing those thoughts. On the other hand, I can think optimistically one thought at a time and build that habit up. Self-motivation is all a matter of how much in control you want to be. I read somewhere that we humans have up to 45,000 thoughts a day. I can't vouch for the accuracy of that figure, especially because I know some people who seem to have no more than 9 or 10. However, if it is true that we have 45,000 thoughts, then you can see how potent we have to be about turning a pessimistic thought habit around. The overall pattern won't change after just a few positive bounces of the brain. If you're a pessimist, your biocomputer has really been programmed heavily in that direction. But it doesn't take long before a new pattern can emerge. As a former pessimist myself, I can tell you it really happens. However, slowly but surely, you do change, one thought at a time. If you can bounce it one way, you can bounce it the other.